So I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people.
What if the story everyone's been told about Charlie Kirk is missing the biggest pieces of the puzzle? For months, people have focused on the final day, the police reports, the confusing details, and the endless online theories. But what if the real story started long before any of that happened? Because once you trace the timeline back, things begin looking a lot darker. Private meetings, angry donors, internal power struggles.
People to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked.
Controversial podcasts, mysterious documents, and public disagreements over war and foreign influence all started piling up around Charlie in the months before his death. And the deeper you dig, the harder it becomes to believe everything was just random coincidence. Tonight, we're breaking down the timeline, the connections, and the questions that many people still don't want answered. Most people breaking down the Charlie Kirk case start on September 10th.
Was there a stand-down order? Was there a stand-down order? Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America, we have here in Israel. Was there something to think about? But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard-right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Yep. I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay? But there are some serious questions here, Patrick. And let me tell you, my pattern recognition over the last 5 years has become pretty sharp. COVID, Maui fires, Epstein. When I see a story and it doesn't click, our guts are usually right.
And yeah, day alone is packed with strange details. The decoys, the police radio chatter, the hard-to-believe neck wound. It already sounds wild on its own. But once you start looking at the months before that date, the whole timeline starts feeling off in a major way. And not just a little weird, seriously weird.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Before September 10th, there were shady meetings, oddly timed firings, confusing public statements, and several incidents that seemed random at first glance. But when you line everything up together, the pattern starts looking impossible to ignore. Tonight, we're rewinding everything back and starting this story where it probably should have started from the beginning. In this video, I'm covering the Charlie Kirk case in a way almost nobody else on YouTube has touched. Like a lot of you watching right now, I've spent months digging through this story from every possible angle.
Our MAGA base does not want a war at all whatsoever. They do not want U.S. involvement. They do not want the United States to be engaged in this. But we must resist the siren song of displacing dictators in lands we do not understand and we have no business running. The worst possible case scenario is Iran says, okay, you humiliated us, you killed all of our leaders. we're going to go make this a regional mess and try to get as many people involved as possible. They're going to go after Americans. They're going to go after Saudis. They're going to go after everybody imaginable just to create a big mess and to try to draw the world into it. But I can say concretely, here's where I stand and where the MAGA base stands. We do not want U.S. boots on the ground. We do not want American kinetic involvement. This is Israel's war. Amongst the Washington, D.C. and neoconservative, neo-imperialist class, especially in the Republican Party, they've kind of shifted gears here.
I've looked into the directors tied to different TPUSA entities, checked into his in-laws, and even examined the role of his now widowed wife, Crazy Eyes, and the people around her. I've gone deep into every theory people have been throwing around online. Was this connected to claims about money disappearing from TPUSA? Was someone trying to clear the path for a new CEO to take control? Did rumors about insurance money play a role? Or was it really just a strange lone suspect? A cross-eyed, furry kid people online keep talking about?
They've shifted gears from Iran should not have a nuclear weapon to Iran should not have an Ayatollah. First, it was that Israel is going to take out the nuclear weapon. And then it was, well, America is going to help Israel take out the nuclear weapon. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences.
Who somehow managed to pull it off with shocking accuracy. So let's start here. Everybody knew Charlie was a proud and deeply devoted Christian. And because of his faith and conservative views, he publicly supported the place many people connect with the birthplace of Jesus. I'm choosing my words carefully here because I don't want this video getting buried or restricted early on. So I'm avoiding directly naming the country. But most of you already know exactly which one I mean.
Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space.
A lot of people were caught off guard when, just 5 days after the October 7th attack, Charlie made comments during an appearance on the PBD podcast that immediately got attention and had viewers debating what he really meant. Charlie was one of the first major conservative figures, maybe the first, to openly ask a question that a lot of people saw as both provocative and completely reasonable. That moment caught attention fast because it gave the public a different view of him. Up until then, many people believed his stance on that country and its government was totally straightforward. But suddenly, things didn't seem so simple anymore. Not long after that, on October 23rd, Charlie was reportedly texting with his longtime friend Candace Owens, and she later shared parts of those messages publicly.
And he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran, very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
Charlie, there are some verses in the Talmud that will blow your mind. Candace, I'm aware of them. Charlie, the Talmud is not biblical, but it's their rabbinical interpretations of Judaism. Candace, I did a deep dive 1 week. Charlie, thought crime. Candace, yep, Those messages added even more questions because they seemed to show Charlie privately discussing topics the public rarely heard him speak about so openly. And remember, this happened only weeks after his appearance on the PBD podcast, making the timing stand out even more.
I feel, and I cannot say for sure, but I feel that something was watching and it felt the clock ticking and its opportunity to finally bring about this war, which I think Netanyahu said he's been dreaming of for 40 years.
He did say that.
So something wanted this war to happen, and there was the perception that the opportunity, the window was closing, so it had to be brought about quickly. Given how public Charlie was on this topic, I can't help but wonder.
Then things got even stranger. On May 2nd, 2025, Charlie Kirk allegedly sent a 7-page letter to Benjamin Netanyahu, a detail that immediately sparked speculation and intense debate online. According to Bibi and Andrew Colvet, the letter was real, and in it, Charlie reportedly warned that support for that country was fading fast among Gen Z voters. He allegedly gave recommendations on how its leadership could improve its image and fight what he described as an information war. After Charlie's death, a lot of people pointed to that letter as proof that his support for the country was completely solid and unquestioned. But when you look closer, the situation seems far more layered and complicated than many originally believed. What often gets left out is what happened just 2 days after that letter was supposedly sent.
Now, obviously that will sound crazy to many people, that something would have even considered such a thing. But I will say that after Charlie was killed, Benjamin Netanyahu very quickly denied responsibility for it. I was shocked by this. It did not seem natural.
Charlie posted a tweet that shocked a lot of his supporters and critics alike because it sounded very different from the image many people had of him publicly. He wrote, "Tomorrow the House will vote on H.R. 867, a bill that will criminalize private boycotts of Israel. Fines up to $1 million and prison time up to 20 years. Bills like this only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the U.S. government. In America, you are allowed to hold differing views. You are allowed to disagree and protest. We've allowed far too many people who hate America move here from abroad. But the right to speak freely is the birthright of all Americans. This bill should not pass."
He wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads basically 3 options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove, and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing. Interest of time, let's get to the boring stuff first.
Okay.
Do you have any opinion on the Epstein situation?
You know, I'll be honest, I'm with Ben Shapiro. I think we know enough. We don't need to know anymore. So the real scandal here is who he was working for and where the money came from. That's the actual scandal. And no one will say anything about it because the answer...
Was it American intelligence?
No.
Was it Saudi intelligence? No. Was it British intelligence?
It was Israeli intelligence. It's still a foreign country, and it's a fair question to ask, were you running a blackmail scheme in our country?
Any Republican that votes for this bill will expose themselves. That post immediately got people talking because it showed Charlie taking a much more complicated position than many expected. We will be watching very closely. So it was pretty clear Charlie did not support that bill. That's what made the situation look even more complicated. On one hand, he was supposedly writing a detailed letter to Benjamin Netanyahu about helping win an information war. But then, just 2 days later, he was publicly defending Americans' right to criticize or even boycott Israel. That contrast had a lot of people raising eyebrows and asking serious questions. Another thing Charlie openly pushed back against was the idea of America going to war with Iran. That's important because military action against Iran has been advocated for by Benjamin Netanyahu and several longtime neoconservative figures for many years. Back during the spring and summer of 2025, talk about a possible conflict with Iran started heating up again, and Charlie made his position very clear.
And I think the answer is yes. So they were asked, and they're like, we're not going to tell you. And it's like, well, so why are we sending you all this money every year if you won't answer a simple question? If you're actually running a criminal enterprise in our country, which it seems like they were, then you should answer the question, and no American citizen should be embarrassed to ask that. It doesn't make you a hater or a wacko. There are some people, I think, administration who are like, yeah, really, Jeffrey Epstein, like, is that the biggest thing going on in the world right now? And I think they sort of missed, not all, but some, that it's a metaphor for everything. It's like, how do all these people get so rich in the first place? Not just Jeffrey Epstein, but like, how did Bill Ackman get so rich? Is he really like a market genius? Is he? Is he like $9 billion smart?
He repeatedly pushed back against the idea of America getting dragged into another war overseas. That stance stood out because it put him at odds with several powerful voices who had been calling for a tougher approach toward Iran for years. So Charlie was very clear that he did not support war with Iran. And this wasn't just something he said publicly for cameras or interviews. Reports and insiders claimed he was also having these same conversations privately with Trump on multiple occasions, pushing his views directly behind the scenes while major political tensions were building. Given everything happening now in 2026 with Trump's controversial conflict involving Iran, a move many critics and political voices reportedly warned against,
with his mocking voice and his mocking laughter, they were horrified by what they saw. I had 3 couples reach out to me who had been to the Turning Point USA conference, and this was in Tampa a couple weeks ago. They called me and said they were horrified by what they saw. Horrified. They saw Tucker Carlson get up and act like another crazy person, talking, condemning Israel, praising Qatar with his mocking voice and his mocking laughter. So Tucker gets up and speaks at this conference in Tampa, TPUSA, and right after him comes Michelle Bachmann. Michelle has 5 minutes to make an argument for why we have to stand with Israel to these young people at TUSA.
Some people began wondering whether removing someone like Charlie Kirk from the picture may have benefited certain powerful interests connected to that issue. Those theories have fueled non-stop debate online, especially because Charlie had been so outspoken about opposing another major war in the region. So now you've got Charlie Kirk, a hugely influential figure leading a multi-million-dollar organization supported by major donors with strong pro-Israel views, suddenly making comments and taking positions that some people reportedly were not happy about.
When she starts talking in that conference about supporting Israel and why America should stand with Israel, the people in the audience start booing her. I spoke with her personally. She said 10% in the room got up and walked out on her. That is shameful. Then Charlie Kirk. This is his event. He's responsible for what people are saying and doing. Does he get up and condemn Tucker or correct Tucker for what he said about Israel and how dangerous Qatar is to us? No. Did Charlie get up and defend Michelle Bachmann? Did he condemn the people that got up and walked out on her, that booed her? Did he say why we stand with Israel, we support Israel? No, he didn't. That tells us everything we need to know.
He was publicly resisting calls for war with Iran, but he was also giving attention to discussions about foreign influence in American politics. On top of that, he repeatedly gave a platform to guests who openly criticized certain Israeli government policies and questioned alleged intelligence connections tied to Jeffrey Epstein. One example people point to happened on July 12, 2025, when Charlie invited Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly to speak at a TPUSA event in Tampa. That appearance got attention because both figures had publicly discussed controversial topics involving foreign policy, intelligence agencies, and political influence networks that many mainstream commentators avoided touching altogether. At that same event, former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann also took the stage, and things reportedly got pretty awkward fast. During her speech, she began talking about why Americans should strongly support the small country in the Middle East. But parts of the crowd reacted badly. Some people booed, others started walking out, and the atmosphere quickly turned tense. The reaction immediately got people online talking because it showed a noticeable divide inside the audience at a major TPUSA gathering.
I'm going to now read you an unhinged text message that Charlie received, this time from a female Christian donor. All of the people that trusted you, Jews and Christians, including me, why would you platform anti-Semites like Candace and Tucker? There are many evangelical Christian Zionists who would never give these people the opportunity to spew their hatred. I'm one of them. You say people are accusing you of being an anti-Semite because you disagree with the Israeli government. Well, what is it exactly that you disagree with? You threatened Jews and Christians with your 30 million followers. Are you kidding? Be very careful, Charlie. You are in violation of the 9th commandment by bearing false witness against your brother Judah. When was the last time you read your Bible, Charlie? I'm coming to you as a believer. Genesis 12:3, Obadiah and...
Reports claimed the moment frustrated several donors and supporters connected to the organization. One person who was said to be especially upset was activist Lori Cardoza Moore. According to people discussing the event afterward, Lori was furious about how the crowd responded and how the situation unfolded. So Lori reportedly wanted everybody to know she was angry that Charlie didn't step in more forcefully to defend Michelle Bachmann during that event. According to online discussions and later claims, she wasn't just venting publicly either. She allegedly expressed those frustrations directly to Charlie behind the scenes as well.
Many more prophets warned that those who curse Israel will be cursed. Your TPUSA Tampa event was a disaster. Michelle Bachmann was booed, and about 10% walked out on her when she talked about standing with Israel. You brag about how you convinced all these young voters to vote for Trump, but you can't convince them to stand with our Jewish brethren. This is not a joke, Charlie. I'm coming to you as a sister in faith. You have accomplished so much by the hand of the Almighty, but he is going to lift his hand from you. Don't fall for Tucker, Candace, and the rest. The Jews are under attack. God warns us in the last days that he will wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brothers, Jacob, Israel, was held in captivity and did nothing. Don't be counted among the Edomites. It will be to your peril, as well as the unfinished work God was going to do through you.
Candace Owens later said she received copies of text messages that were allegedly sent to Charlie after the TPUSA event in Tampa. Internet investigators and social media users quickly began analyzing the messages, and many became convinced that Lori Cardoza Moore was the person behind them. So by this point, it was already clear that some donors and political allies were unhappy with how things unfolded at that event. But the drama didn't stop there. The very next day, after Michelle Bachmann's speech received that rough reaction from the crowd, Charlie brought even more controversial voices and debates onto the stage.
Is Israel an ally of the United States?
Yes, of course.
No. But there's no reason why we even have to be enemies with Iran. They oppose no... This is a third world country in the Middle East that does not have nuclear weapons, does not have intercontinental ballistic missiles, does not have an air force capable of hitting us with anything. This is Israel's problem.
Do you think it would be bad if Iran got a nuclear bomb?
Yes, I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
And I think we can all agree on that. That is a moral agreement.
I don't think anybody should be allowed to have nuclear weapons secretly.
Right. And so...
How about that?
I will ask Josh about that, because that's a not so subtle dig at Israel. However,
hold on, are you suggesting that Israel has nuclear weapons?
I don't know, actually, they probably do.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know the intelligence. I'm not that of DNI, but I mean, they probably do.
One of the biggest moments came when Josh Hammer faced off in a debate against Dave Smith, and the clash immediately grabbed attention online. Dave Smith was openly critical of the Israeli government, strongly against more wars in the Middle East, and especially vocal about opposing conflict with Iran. During the debate, a large part of the audience seemed to agree with him, and that reaction reportedly frustrated several donors and pro-Israel activists connected to the event. Critics questioned why Charlie Kirk would even give someone with those views such a major platform in the first place. But even after the backlash, Charlie didn't back away from hosting voices that challenged mainstream talking points on foreign policy. Then, on July 25th, 2025, he released a video showing a focus group discussion with young conservatives. That clip quickly started getting attention because of the opinions people in the group openly shared about foreign policy, war, and America's relationship with Israel. So just to recap everything up to this point, during late spring and early summer of 2025,
We're going to play a word association test. What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear Israel?
Judaism.
Aid.
Netanyahu.
Tax dollars.
Liability.
Sacred.
Tax dollars.
Conflict.
Complex. Controversial.
Scary.
Strategic.
Mossad.
So, Mossad, of all the different things that would come to mind, why does their intelligence service come to mind?
Reminds me of the CIA. You know, it has the CIA, you have the CIA involved with RFK. I mean, there's rumors going around maybe Mossad was a part of the Epstein files, if maybe Mossad was a part of things that we don't know about. And they're just like the Central Intelligence Agency, they are out there doing things that none of us know about.
If you call everyone an anti-Semite, if they don't take a puritanical view of the Netanyahu government,
Charlie Kirk was strongly speaking out against a larger war with Iran. He publicly urged Donald Trump to show restraint, and reports claimed he was also pushing that same message privately during conversations behind closed doors. Then came June 22nd, 2025, when Operation Midnight Hammer, also referred to by some as the 12-Day War, suddenly escalated tensions even further. Israel launched strikes against Iran, and Trump also authorized military action involving U.S. forces. Once again, Charlie reportedly became one of the loudest conservative voices, warning against letting the conflict spiral into something much bigger. Many analysts pointed out that this position clashed with longtime hawkish figures who had supported aggressive action toward Iran for decades. Discussions online exploded as people debated whether Charlie's growing influence on younger conservatives was putting him at odds with powerful political interests tied to foreign policy in the region. And according to researchers following the timeline, that's also when another strange detail started appearing in the background.
then I think it's bad for everybody. And I found this now over 13 years. It's a great truism you guys can learn for the rest of your life. Anybody that tells you we have a messaging problem, you should go a step deeper and ask another question. Being like, what, are you actually doing something wrong? Or are you bad at messaging it? Because people that are doing bad stuff will sometimes be like, well, we're just not presenting it correctly. Sometimes that's true, or sometimes there actually might be something beneath the surface.
A series of very unusual Google searches that would later become a major point of speculation online. August is when this story really starts getting intense because a huge amount of strange developments suddenly begin stacking up one after another. Maybe it's all just coincidence, or maybe it isn't. I'll let you decide that for yourself. Between August 4th and 5th, billionaire investor Bill Ackman reportedly hosted a gathering in the Hamptons that included Charlie Kirk along with several influential political and donor figures. According to stories and rumors that later spread online, tensions at that meeting were high, and some people claimed Charlie was being pressured and criticized by powerful pro-Israel donors over his recent positions and the guests he had been platforming publicly. Reports also claimed that during the August 4th gathering in the Hamptons, Charlie Kirk allegedly had a phone conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu. That detail immediately caught attention online because people began connecting it to the growing tensions surrounding Charlie's recent comments, debates, and political positioning. So after that trip, many observers believe Charlie may have walked away with even more critics and political enemies than before. Then, on August 6th,
when was the first time you heard the name Tyler Robinson? Or the Losi Center? A Mauser 98? For me, and I assume many of you, it was in the days and weeks after Charlie Kirk's tragic assassination on September 10th. But what if I told you somebody, maybe multiple somebodies, were searching those terms before September 10th?
Before the shooting.
Well, there's Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m. the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting. And you'll see here where the news finally broke that it was, in fact, Tyler James Robinson.
Just one day after the Hamptons event, Charlie appeared in a conversation with Megyn Kelly where he discussed the backlash tied to the Dave Smith debate. During that discussion, he also talked about the criticism and pressure he said he was receiving from certain pro-Israel donors and political figures behind the scenes. Charlie appeared to be feeling serious pressure from donors and political allies. And in my opinion, his body language during that podcast made him look stressed and emotionally drained. A lot of viewers noticed it too, with people online pointing out how different his tone and energy seemed compared to earlier appearances. And there's another detail I almost forgot to mention. A detail some people insist was just a coincidence. But according to those following this case closely, moments like these have been used as circumstantial evidence to support theories that larger forces may have been working against Charlie behind the scenes. On August 13th, InfoWars host Harrison Smith posted a tweet that immediately sparked intense reactions online. He wrote,
"But notice that. That's weird. That's weird."
You guys have heard. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action.
That's the medical examiner. It is a woman named Dr. Deidre Weiss Amaro, and she blew in from California. She was announced as the new state medical examiner in May of 2024. So I'm interested in learning as much as I can about this medical examiner. I'd like to know more about this medical examiner.
You know who else wanted to know more about Dr. Deidre Amaro? It's our friends over there in the state of Israel. But check out this date, June 30th, 2025. A sudden spike in the interests of the head medical examiner of the state of Utah, Dr. Deidre Amaro, emanating from, once again, the state of Israel, for reasons unknown. What about Timpanogos Regional Hospital, the hospital where Charlie Kirk was declared dead? Well, there's pretty much no interest in Timpanogos Regional Hospital in the state of Israel because why would there be? Except this spike that happened about a month before Charlie Kirk's death.
I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them. That post spread quickly across social media and added even more fuel to the growing speculation surrounding Charlie's situation at the time. Supporters, critics, and internet investigators all started debating what the message really meant and whether there was any truth behind it. Then, just 2 weeks later, the timeline reached another major turning point. August 27th, a date many people now consider extremely important in this entire story. First, August 27th was the date the Utah Valley event was officially announced, which later became a major point in the timeline people started focusing on. But that wasn't the only thing that happened that day. According to documents circulating online, a FARA agreement was also reportedly drafted on August 27th. For anyone unfamiliar, FARA stands for the Foreign Agents Registration Act. In simple terms, it's a U.S. law requiring individuals or organizations working on behalf of foreign governments or interests to publicly disclose certain activities and relationships.
That is very odd. And it was a surgeon from this hospital that told us that Charlie Kirk was a quote-unquote man of steel and that his body stopped a bullet that would typically just go through everything, and it was an absolute miracle. We don't know yet which surgeon supposedly said that, but here are a few surgeons who work at Timpanogos Regional Hospital. We got Dr. Stephen Nealman, Dr. Robert Patterson, Dr. Lee Peterson, Dr. Lee Trotter, just to name a few. I wonder if anybody was searching for these folks.
Stephen Nealman, July 18th, 2025. This was out of our friends on the other side of the planet over there. Very curious about the surgeons in Utah, you'll find out. Robert Patterson, MD, July 23 and 24. I go to the next one, Lee Trotter, someone with an IP address originating in Israel, looking up surgeon Lee Trotter, near about that same July 20 time period.
That alone made people pay attention once the timeline started getting analyzed more closely. Now, here's where online investigators began pointing out what they considered very strange timing coincidences. The agreement was reportedly drafted on the exact same day the Utah Valley event was announced. Then, according to claims circulating online, the document was signed on September 8, 2025, which also happened to be the same day Charlie was allegedly messaging in a group chat, saying he felt he had no choice but to distance himself from the pro-Israel movement. And the timeline didn't stop there. Reports claimed the document was officially filed on September 18th, the very same day Erica was announced as the new CEO of TPUSA. Those overlapping dates immediately fueled even more speculation online, with people debating whether it was all random coincidence or part of a much bigger political fallout happening behind the scenes. This document conveniently, or maybe inconveniently,
Are there other surgeons in the area? Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. There's a guy named Lee Patterson. So I look up Lee Patterson. Somebody with an IP address originating in Israel in the week of July 20, that week on either side of July 20, was very interested in all the people who practice surgery at Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Orem, Utah.
So yeah, I don't know. We can either believe that there just happened to be a few people in the state of Israel in the month of July and August who were very interested in finding out more about a certain regional hospital in the state of Utah and who the state's head medical examiner was, and the different surgeons in the area. Or maybe there's just one too many coincidences to not investigate further. Oh, and by the way, I just checked what Google Trends looks like now. And yeah, looks like absolutely nothing to see here, guys.
Depending on how you look at it, had several dates that seemed to line up with major events in Charlie Kirk's timeline. That's a big reason why so many people online became fixated on it and started connecting different pieces together. What especially caught attention was that the document was reportedly signed by Brad Parscale, disclosing activities tied to representing Israeli interests to Gen Z, audiences on behalf of the Israeli government. Parscale is a major political figure who previously worked on Trump's campaign and later served as chief strategy officer at Salem Media. And that last part is where people's interest really intensified, because Salem Media also happened to be the distributor of The Charlie Kirk Show. Once those connections became public, internet investigators immediately started digging deeper into the relationships between the media companies, political figures, and organizations surrounding Charlie during those final months.
And more people started talking, and people were talking to me. And these were people who had knowledge of a tumultuous, stormy meeting held in the Hamptons during the first week of August, convened by the billionaire ultra-Zionist financier Bill Ackman, who was close to Netanyahu and his kind of network in the United States. Charlie Kirk was summoned along with an array of young, sort of vapid, very avaricious, conservative influencers who seemed to be sort of in Israel's back pocket to set a very pro-Israel tone for this meeting. And Charlie Kirk was, according to one source, hammered by Ackman and others for allowing Israel critics.
Of course, some people argue that all those overlapping dates are simply coincidences, and that Brad Parscale allegedly receiving money connected to overseas public relations efforts had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk or the events surrounding him. That's definitely one interpretation. And it's important to separate confirmed facts from online speculation. Still, a lot of researchers following the case found the timing unusual enough to keep digging into it. The connections, the dates, and the overlapping political relationships kept raising questions across social media and independent news circles. Then another detail entered the timeline. On September 2nd, the new head of the Salt Lake City FBI office officially started the job. A fact that later became another heavily discussed point among people tracking the case online. Another major development reportedly happened on September 2nd when an internal memo began circulating inside TPUSA. According to claims discussed online, Charlie Kirk informed people within the organization that he planned to carry out a Doge-style audit of TPUSA's finances.
Very prominent conservative voices like Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, or the anti-Zionist Jewish comedian Dave Smith to appear at his events. According to multiple sources, had this meeting to basically bully Charlie Kirk into submission. Charlie Kirk walked away, according to one person, feeling like there was an attempt to blackmail him. He refused any offers of funding and also refused the offer to travel to Israel and meet with Netanyahu.
That immediately sparked speculation because people started wondering what exactly he was looking into and who inside the organization might have been nervous about it. Then, on September 9th, Charlie appeared on a podcast with Ben Shapiro, jokingly referred to online by some as the Eyebrow King. That interview quickly became another closely analyzed moment in the timeline as internet investigators searched for clues in Charlie's comments and behavior. And then, according to the timeline being discussed online, the very next day, Charlie died, under circumstances that many people immediately began questioning. The shockwaves spread fast across political media, social platforms, and among his supporters, with countless theories starting to surface almost instantly. At the memorial service, Tucker Carlson, who was known to be a close friend of Charlie's, shared a message that many listeners felt carried a deeper meaning.
In your crackdowns on mild
Nuts is the
pushback
right
on
word.
anything related to Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megan, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel both on campus, on social media. The way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical
ridiculous.
Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And there's another article out in the Times of Israel today. I could read it on air. I was just reading before I got on. Charlie, what are you doing? Like, why are you... What am I doing? My moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Megan. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages.
He said, "It actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up, and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers." After hearing all of this, you can probably tell what theory many people online have started leaning toward about what really happened to Charlie. The belief isn't centered around internet stereotypes or random outsiders. It's focused on the idea that Charlie may have made powerful political enemies along the way. Some people speculate that certain figures did not want him influencing Trump behind the scenes anymore, especially as his views on foreign policy and donor influence appeared to shift. Others believe there was also a battle over control of TPUSA itself, with accusations and rumors swirling online about financial issues and political messaging tied to the organization.
Any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megan, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly, right? I'm an American, okay? Hostile reaction. Is that now Megyn and Charlie are enemies?
Right.
Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're not gonna, I won't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate.
The more you try to tell me I can't criticize Israel, the more likely I am to do it, to focus on exactly what you're doing, right? Like what are you doing that you're so defensive? You don't own me. I don't take $1 of money from any Jewish affiliated group. That's never been.
So clearly,
And according to those theories, the reason some individuals inside TPUSA have stayed quiet or avoided speaking publicly is because they may have feared scrutiny over internal financial practices and organizational conflicts that were already creating tension behind the scenes. Now, to be clear, there's no public proof confirming any of this. These are conclusions and suspicions based on financial documents, online research, and patterns that people have pointed out while digging through publicly available records. According to those discussions, several vendor companies connected to TPUSA appeared unusual because they reportedly received large amounts of money despite having little or no visible online presence. Some online investigators also claimed certain companies lacked clear business information or publicly identifiable.
We were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
I don't think you are.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions.
Office locations, which naturally fueled even more speculation. Because of that, theories about possible financial misconduct or internal misuse of funds started spreading across social media and independent commentary channels.
Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media.
And in the eyes of people pushing those theories, anyone staying silent now may simply be trying to protect themselves from deeper scrutiny as more questions continue surfacing. I also think Erica played a calculated role in all of this.
And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up.
That's just my personal opinion based on how the timeline unfolded and the opportunities that appeared afterward. From my perspective, some people online believe her relationship with Charlie brought influence and access, while his death ultimately brought even more attention and power into her orbit. Again, that's all just my opinion based on the timeline, the public information, and the questions people have been asking online. But with so many strange connections and overlapping events,
and I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
it's easy to see why this case continues to spark nonstop debate and speculation. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe for more content. I'll catch you all in the next video. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.